Have you ever seen one of these? These are flashing Christmas stars, and when I was a kid and I grew up in the 90s, these things here were all the rage. They came in different colors, sizes, and shapes, and most importantly, they blink a lot. And how they blink is quite interesting too, because instead of electronics, they use bimetallic switches that are embedded inside the light bulbs. But unfortunately, these incandescent lights can break and replacements are quite expensive. And not just the bulbs, the stars themselves are expensive too, because they're no longer being made.
So for the last video of the year, I thought I would invite you to join me on my journey to recreate one of those Christmas stars with everyday materials. I don't want to show the final result yet, but you've actually already seen it because it was one of the 4 examples that I showed at the very beginning of the video. And let me know in the comments, be honest, if you could spot it or not. And if you're still looking for an interesting project to do on a cold winter weekend, why not make it this one? Hi, my name is Jens and I believe that everybody can learn electronics, and I wanted this star to not just be a recreation but also an improvement. So the color should be adjustable, it should have a built-in timer so that it can turn itself on and off automatically, and in case the power gets cut, then all the settings should still be there. So if you want to build this, then on the electronics side, here's what you need.
A 5V WS2811 NeoPixel LED strip with 50 LEDs. And we will power everything with an ordinary 5V USB power supply, and for that we need a USB adapter. The PIC16F1455 microcontroller with a 14-pin socket, a MAX7219 7-segment LED module, and a rotary encoder. The DS1302 real-time clock IC together with an 8-pin socket, a coin cell battery holder, and a 32.768 kHz watch crystal, which you can all find on a single board for very cheap. And finally a 4.7 kΩ resistor, a 100 microfarad capacitor, and 2 100 nanofarad capacitors. And to flash the PIC microcontroller, you also need the PIC-Kit 3 or the MP Lab Snap. As always, you can find a detailed list of all the components and information on where to buy them on friendlywire.com. Just follow the link in the description. The basic idea is very simple. Our star has one LED in the middle and then 3 rings of 16 LEDs each, so a total of 49 LEDs. And if we arrange our 50 LED strip accordingly and cut off the last LED, then we're in business. Keep in mind that the WS2811 LED strip has a data direction, which you can see by looking for the small arrows on the LEDs, and we will put the first LED in the center. And this is the main idea of the schematic. The PIC controls our LED strip by sending out the red, green, and blue color data, and we control the settings with the rotary encoder that also has a built-in push button. All settings are shown on the 8-digit 7-segment display, and the real-time clock IC provides the time information for the timer that turns our star on and off. And because that chip has a built-in battery, we can also use it to store all settings. And we will use the Snap or the PIC-Kit 3 as a programmer to flash our program that we will write later onto the PIC microcontroller. And we actually know all of these components already because we have covered all of these topics in previous videos. And this was the main idea, and then here is the actual schematic. To remove possible noise on the power supply, both the PIC16F1455 and the DS1302 get a 100 nanofarad bypass capacitor close to them, and we also add a chunky 100 microfarad capacitor to help prevent power dips when a lot of LEDs are turned on all at once. And last, the 4.7 kΩ resistor at the rotary encoder's push button acts as a pull-up resistor. For the pins A and B of the rotary encoder, we don't need that because the PIC has built-in pull-ups on pins RA4 and RA5. It also has one on RA3, which we could have used, but because in that case we could not use the snap to flash our PIC, I wanted to avoid it and decided to connect the push button to RA1 instead and add the pull-up resistor manually. Oh well. Down here at the real-time clock IC, this here is the backup battery, and a simple CR2032 coin cell battery will last many years, and Q1 here is the clock crystal that generates the 1 Hz time base for our clock.
And that's the idea of the schematic. Now, usually on this channel I build everything on breadboards, but for this project, since it's a Christmas decoration, it gets lugged around a lot, I wanted it to be a bit more durable and a bit more stable, so I opted to use perf boards instead. So I mounted everything and then soldered everything by hand, and this is how it looks like.
The USB adapter is here, and here is where we connect the WS2811 LED strip. The rotary encoder and the 7-segment displays are on separate boards, and the main board here holds the pic, the real-time clock, and the coin cell battery. I glued the wires in place with hot glue to act as a strain relief because I didn't want any of the wires to break.
Now, of course, on its own, the circuit doesn't do anything because it has a microcontroller in it, and a microcontroller needs a software that tells it what to do. And if you're new to all of this, then don't worry, you've come to the right place because I have a lot of videos on that here on this channel. But in a nutshell, what the software has to do is really simple. It has to recreate this flashing pattern of the lights that we saw earlier.
When I looked at the video of one of these stars, I noticed that there is no fixed pattern, but instead the groups of lights turn on and off for a fixed amount of time. But those on and off times are not the same across the groups, and that is what creates these interesting patterns. In the code there are two modes, a fast mode and a slow mode, and the way that I programmed everything, a time of 225 corresponds to 1 second, give or take.
And that's the nice thing, because if you can program this controller yourself, then you can adjust these times to exactly what you would like them to be.
The source code for this project ended up being more than 1,000 lines of code, but we don't actually have to go through all of this because a lot of it is from previous projects. This part here deals with the rotary encoder, this here with the MAX7219 display, this one here with the DS1302 real-time clock, and this one here with the WS2811 NeoPixel LEDs. And this whole part here is actually taken directly from the binary clock code from some time ago. Only this part here is responsible for turning the LEDs on and off and to recreate the flashing pattern of the Christmas stars.
If you feel lost with the code, and trust me, this happens, then it really helps to go through step by step the various tutorials that we have here on this channel, because I promise you, you will recognize a lot of things. And as always, there's also the companion article on friendlywire.com that you can check out as well on additional details on the code, and the link as always is in the description.
But now we can take this code and turn it into a hex file inside the MPLAB IDE, or you can also download the hex file directly from friendlywire.com. Place the pic on a small breadboard and connect the lines VDD, ground, master clear, program data, and program clock. And then if you're using the snap, don't forget to add a 4.5 volt battery power supply because the snap doesn't have a built-in one. Inside the MPLAB IPE, we then select the hex file we just created or downloaded and flash it onto the PIC16F1455, and I have a very detailed video on all of this if you are interested. And then we're done with the electronics part of the project.
But honestly, at this point, all that we've really done is build an overly complicated version of fairy lights. But to me, the appeal of a Christmas star comes, yes, from the blinking of the lights, but also from the materials that it's made of.
The probably most visible ingredient is Christmas tinsel. Just make sure you get non-metallic one that is non-conducting. But the other ingredient are these specially made starburst reflectors. They're made of clear plastic and have a really unique shape, and they are what makes the stars really sparkle and shine.
And if, like me, you don't have a resin 3D printer, then this is really a problem. I mean, how can we make these things ourselves?
But around that time, I was looking at Christmas tree ornaments, and I realized that the Christmas ornament caps themselves, which are made of very thin sheet metal, are perfect for this job. All we need is punch a hole into them with a leather hole punch, bend them a bit, and then place them on top of the WS2811 NeoPixel LEDs. And here's a small test I made with just 3 LEDs, but I think you can see that this has potential. Now I only had to make 49 more of them. Well, actually only 48, because for the LED in the middle I decided to use a metal Christmas candle holder, which is a little bit bigger and works quite well as a centerpiece.
Fair warning though, these things are tough. They're made from some sort of metal, and it took me a good half hour with my Dremel tool to get that hole in there, so keep that in mind. Maybe there is an easier solution out there somewhere. But at this point I got very excited because it looked like that this project was going to be a success. Now, real Christmas stars mount the lights on some sort of specially made frame, but I didn't know how to make that myself. But at that point I discovered that cake plates made from acrylic are the perfect size, and they even come with really nice patterns already built in.
So I went to recreate the traditional arrangement, even though this cake plate is 30 centimeters or 12 inches, which is a bit bigger than the original stars. I drilled a 3mm hole in the center, or close enough to the center, and then stole our cat's toy string to make 3 concentric circles. This is acrylic, so you have to be careful when drilling it so that it doesn't crack, but I found that a step drill works great if you take your time. But yeah, this does make quite a mess. And then it was time to glue in the LEDs. I used hot glue for this and it took forever because the holes were 13mm and the LEDs are only 12. But this was not a mistake, we actually need the LEDs to stick out of the plate far enough so that later they don't get covered by the tinsel. They did not all come out perfectly straight because I had to arrange them by hand, but this kind of project is very forgiving with such things. And at that point I just couldn't wait any longer and placed the reflector caps on the LEDs to get some idea of how it would look like. The 12mm hole was a snug fit for most of them, but I may go back later and fix them in place with super glue just to be safe. And then it was time to decorate and wrap everything in tinsel, which actually just gets held in place by the reflector caps themselves and doesn't need any extra glue, just the end needs to be tucked away neatly. This takes some time to do because some of the tinsel will cover the reflector caps, but it was a strangely satisfying experience, so I didn't really mind. And it really creates that 90s look. The middle part was still looking a bit empty, so I cut 3 strips of silver ribbon, placed them on top of the center LED, and then fastened it in place with the reflector cap. Again, this holds well without glue, but I may add a drop of super glue later just in case. Then it was time to mount the electronics, and I used M3 brass standoffs for that. I added some hardware designed to hang picture frames, and then the star was done. And here it is in all its glory. I am super happy with how it turned out. It is exactly how I remember it from my childhood. And for me, the best part is the functionality. So when you plug in the star, it just shows the current time, so it kind of doubles as a clock. But when you turn the button for the first time, you can select between the 4 available styles and confirm your choice by pressing the button. Next are the 4 colors. 1 is the middle LED and 4 is the outer ring. You can cycle through all available colors by turning the button and then confirm each color by pressing it. Then you can adjust the time when the star turns on. That's why it says on the left here. Select the hours, press the button, and then select the minutes and press the button again. Then, you guessed it, we adjust when the star turns off in the same way. And then, after confirming, we can set the current time, and you only have to do that once when you power it up for the first time. And that's the whole menu, and after pressing the button for a final time, we are back in the style menu from the beginning. Here we just let it sit, and eventually it'll go back to just showing the time.
If you wait in any other menu point, it'll just wait there forever. So make sure if you want to leave the menu that you go back to style first. But if you find a better solution for how the menu could look like, please let me know in the comments and I'll do my very best to implement it in the code.
And here are some of our favorite color combinations. First, the traditional green, yellow, red combo that may or may not be considered a bit tacky but has 90s written all over it. And then a slightly colder bluish purple palette, but of course you can also choose all colors to be the same. And here's the best part. If you unplug it after this year's Christmas, it will still remember all the settings next year around the same time.
I really love this thing. This is easily one of my favorite things that I have ever built, and I really hope I could inspire you to build something yourself as well. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what else you want to learn, and I'll see you next time. Happy holidays!